Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaskars and greetings to one and all. So, we are beginning a new session, Spiritual Insights for Everyday Living. In this particular session, today's topic is never underestimate the power of little things. That's the topic for today. Let me begin with a short story, an anecdote. In ancient Japan, this story setting is from ancient Japan, it's a Zen story. In ancient Japan, there was a young and brilliant archer. Brilliant though he may be, he was a very conceited one. And he always made sure that he was the best. He had heard of an old monk, an accomplished, venerable one in that. And he wanted to surpass him. He wanted to test him. So a meeting was arranged. The villagers assembled. And the show started. With extraordinary abilities, he performed one skill after the another. And he came at top. Then the young man asked this old monk to outdo him, surpass his attempt. The old monk picked up his bow and arrow, walked across to a gorge nearby, a chasm, which was covered by a small tattering piece of log. And he went across in the middle, took up his bow and shot the arrow, and it struck the center of a tree. And he invited this young man to repeat or duplicate this task. This young talented archer was taken aback. He was perturbed by this challenge. He never anticipated it. Seeing his perturbedness, the master, the old monk, observed. He said, "Dear man, you have got great control over your bow, but little with the mind that lets loose the arrow." With this at the background, we'll begin our talk. All stories have perspectives to say. What could be understood from the story is something which each one of us should individually perceive and understand. The world today, with its myriad challenges, tests even the best minds and talents. In this today's talk, let us try to reorient our learning and gain insights as to the power of the little things which can deliver us to discovering our mind, our innate sense of balance, our repose. When difficulties arise, when challenges unanticipated arise, how do we cater? How do we face those challenges? This is the theme of today's talk. What measures which we need to take? What little habits which we can inculcate in our routine which will be able to deliver us from these difficulties is the theme for today's talk. What do we want in life? All of us want good physique, good lifestyle, healthy body, healthy mind. Is it not? All our tasks, work and home, we do not want to have any pending tasks. We want to complete it on time and be free. A life where we are able to manage our stresses, the challenges, that poise, that calm contentment is what we desire. Let's imagine, visualize a situation where all of you, with your family, have gone for a vacation. That peace, and contentment which you derive from the vacation, free from worries, is something which you would all like to translate it in your lives. So is it a possibility? Is it possible to translate that sense of joy and contentment in our daily lives? Yes, it is possible. So how do we make it a part of our life? What needs to be done to make it happen? To make that temporary state, that fleeting moments which you capture in the digital media into something which is more permanent and translating into your lives, the secret probably lies with our mindset, with how we structure our habits and how we approach the smaller details of our life, our daily routine. So in this light, let us try to explore some connections. Let us draw some insights between habit, thought, and actions. Habit, thought, and actions. What are habits? What are habits? Habits, a routine, it's a practice, it's a system which we incorporate into our life, which is performed on a regular basis. It is an automatic response to a situation, to any specific situation. Habits are cutting across various levels. The habits which are part of our daily life, a monotonous life, because none of us would like to have different schedules when you get up and do different things every different day. We'd like to establish a basic routine. So we all know what habit is. But what I am looking at today here is those habits, those practices which, if inculcated in our life, how it could translate, transform, metamorphose our lives. That is those habits I'm looking at. Swami Vivekananda points out that we are hypnotized into weakness by our surroundings. Hypnotized. Very strong words indeed. He says, we are lions in sheep's clothing of a habit. We are lions in sheep's clothing of a habit. What are we brought upon ourselves? What attire are we wearing? What are those collectives we call habit? What are those? So, if our habits, that collective attire which makes us weak, what is the process which we need to de-hypnotize ourselves? How could we transform ourselves? What is that process for cultivating better habits? Swamiji remarks, he continues, he says, the only remedy for bad habits is counter habits. We need to initiate an opposite thought current into that stream of habits, that counter movement. That process of initiating opposing thought forces is what we need to do to initiate change. So to do that, habits need to be understood at the level of thought, thought processes. Correct? Thought processes. What gets measured gets managed. What gets measured gets managed. So if you are able to measure it, we'll be able to do something about it. If you are unconscious about a particular thought, how could you possibly think of reforming or reframing and applying it into a change into your lives? We need to be able to see it, observe it. There are various studies which points out up to 70,000 thoughts pass across a human being's mind every day on a daily basis. 70,000 thoughts. How many can you possibly remember? So what is the way forward for all of us? Yes, it looks impossible, it looks daunting. But let us begin where we can. Let us start by placing our attention to the most dominant thoughts. Those thoughts which has a higher frequency into our mind stream. So, by paying attention, how do we pay attention to that? We need to be aware. We need to become aware of those thoughts. If your mind is agitated, if you are busy, how can you possibly become aware of our thoughts? Sometimes we are not even aware of what is around us. So it's a far-fetched thing. What is happening into our recesses of our mind? It's a far-fetched thing. So that concept of awareness needs to be inculcated. So how can one become aware? To establish oneself in a state of heightened awareness. We call heightened awareness. We need to get our basics right, fundamentals. Now, children, school, we start off from the beginning, the ABCs, the alphabets. In the realm of mind, in the realm of psychology, it is not the matter of age, it's a matter of insight which you draw from your experience. So that insight which you draw from your experience enables one to become more mature, more competent, to understand and manage the difficulties and challenges of our life. Let us, for instance, take a particular routine like having a regular exercise regimen, a wonderful diet system, a meditative life, a very good satsang. We all know that this is holistically good, it is beneficial to us. But from our own experience, do not we know that to put these good practices into our life, it is a daunting task. To bring in good practices, to bring in good practices into our life, this is anything but daunting. Yes, it is difficult. Though we know what is good, to put it into our lives is difficult. Why is it so? In relative to that, let us take the examples or illustrations of eating junk food, having some bad habits, late night sleep or binge watching. So these are practices which is not conducive to a holistic life. But we do know that it is not good, but we indulge in that. Why is it so? So this is nothing to do about not knowing what is right or wrong, but it is trying to put what we know is right, rightly into our life. So that is where we need to work upon. Bring about change in our lives. Changes are good. Change is how the world works. World is nothing but change. But to adapt to change is not easy. We get fixated with various aspects of our life and are resistant to change. So to bring about change and growth, we need to move out of our comfort zone. How do we do that? We have heard to moving out of the comfort zone, success, excellence lies outside the comfort zone. Think out of the box. That's all good and fine when we hear it in the different media and different streams. But to apply it into our lives, how do we do that? We need to be cognizant of these three aspects which I'm going to present before you today. How can we do that? First, let us focus on changing the results. What do we want? How do you achieve those results? What is at the end of the rainbow? What is the end of my particular attempt? What do I get? Second, focusing on the change process. That process which you need to adapt in our lives. What should I do? What are the skill sets which I need to incorporate into my life? The steps, what you do. Third, focusing on changing our worldviews. Worldviews necessarily is not something which is outside us. It's inside us. What we think is our worldview. So how do we focus on changing our worldview? What do I believe in? What am I most passionate about? What is my value systems? These aspects of results, process, and my belief systems help us in understanding how I can frame my habits. Because a key to improve our life revolves around adopting something called habits. A little habit, a little change is part of a larger ecosystem. To give you an illustration, consider a kettle with water. It needs to be boiled. Boiling point is a particular threshold where the water gets boiled at a particular temperature. But to reach that temperature, does the temperature come all of a sudden? How does one reach the threshold of that boiling point? That comes when at the background, unseen, is that energy which is being supplied to that particular system, which is beyond our purview, which is beyond our gaze, is what we need to understand. To bring about a transformation, to bring about a reformation, we need to understand that process which is beyond what is apparently seen. So we are eager to admire, adulate the heroes which are seen or are seen on the media. But their effort, that daily rigmarole, that routine, that painstaking back-breaking effort which they put is conveniently forgotten. That is what we need to be cognizant of. When we understand that, the results are felt, are seen tangibly. That is what we understand by crossing that threshold. Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, our Ishtadevata, the greatest philosophies, the greatest abstract truths and ideas were put forth to the people whom he met through parables, through analogies, through stories. He was a different type of a master. Just like the Zen masters. Zen started off, it originated in India, from Bodhidharma, China, Japan, went on. That 4,000, 5,000 years of civilization had its origin in the Bharatvarsha. So the masters like Sri Ramakrishna, the tradition masters, try to convey the highest abstract truths to the people, common people, through parables. One such parable I'd like to place before you. The parable of the small plant, the young sapling which needs to be edged, fenced. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that when a plant is young, a tiny sapling, we have seen across in the corporation here, puts in new saplings, they fence it. Why do they do that? To protect it from stray animals, from the gusts of wind. So we are talking about that initial protection. Where till when that protection needs to be done, you can see for yourself. As long as those plants grow up, draw nurture from the soil, from the environment, spread its roots deep down into the recesses, to the bosom of the earth, and stabilizes itself and grows up into a powerful tree, a powerful banyan tree, for example. Then you can probably tie an elephant to it. Nothing happens. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna wanted us to understand. When we are young, when our minds are in the formative phase, we need to understand how we need to put an edge. That's how, as parents, as guardians, we try to take care of our children from different influences. When we talk about these changes which we need to incorporate into our social structure, that protection, this protection brings about freedom when we become responsible, because freedom doesn't come without responsibility. That is, as parents, as guardians, we need to understand and pass on that message to our new generation. To bring about these changes, how to bring about this new sense of awareness, this connection with our universe is what happens when we have this proper hedges put across. This is not a distraction, it is not an obstruction, it is something which will be able to nurture growth, foster growth. With freedom comes responsibility. Pain and change. Pain and change. Some observations. We are in the age of information overload, plenty of information. It's a struggle every day to organize our mind, the organized mind. So there are a lot of authors all across coining various books, self-help books. So how we can understand this information overload, which overwhelms our physical, mental, intellectual, emotional and spiritual frameworks of our life. It overwhelms us. We do not know what to do. Just like when a difficult situation comes, just like the young archer in the parable who comes and he's unable, though he's an excellent archer, these unanticipated challenges has clouded his discrimination. That unanticipated challenges which we all face in our lives, life is not a bed of roses as the cliche goes. Cliches are there for a reason. When this unanticipated changes comes into our life, how can we successfully encounter it is the challenge which we have today. Sarvam paravasham dukkam, sarvam atmavasham sukham, etad vidyat samasena, lakshanam sukha dukkayoho. This ancient Sanskrit Subhashitam talks about control, self-control. It defines what is happiness and what is pain, what is joy, what is sorrow. It says, everything that is in others' control, which is beyond our control, is painful. But which is in our control. Here I would like to give an insight that our control means self-control, not something which you have to have in our control. The control which we generally understand in the world, the general parlance which you understand in the world. We are talking about self-control. That self-control is happiness. This is the definition of happiness and pain, in short. When difficulties come, pain follows. Sometimes intense pain, depression, difficulties. When this intense pain happens, is it the only time we are actually willing to look at our values and question why, and find out whether what we are practicing and doing, is it correct? Do we have to wait till that intense pain dawns upon us? Do not we have that vision, that holistic vision to observe people around us, observe the society around us to adopt and adapt to the challenges. Why is that? Always we need some existential crisis to take on an objective look, so that we need to derive meaning and purpose in our lives, and then probably consider changing our course. Pain. Let us learn to sustain from the pain which we get, because we grow through pain. When you choose a new value into our life, when you adopt a new value, this value comes, accompanies pain. Nothing is free in this world. We have to pay a price for it. So price comes in form of a pain. So how can you welcome that pain? How can you release that pain? How can you savor that pain? And welcoming it with open arms, then act despite that pain. The key lies in acting, not in philosophizing or theorizing. How can we act? That is the key. These actions will eventually determine your destiny. So when you talk about power of little things, we started with habits, thoughts, actions, little things, these little habits which we inculcate in our lives, these ideas which we can put it across and which make a difference. Courage doesn't always roar. It is not always found on the battlefield, courage. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of a very hard day. Courage is the quiet voice which we find echoing in the deep recesses of our mind at the end of the day, saying, I will try again tomorrow with a renewed zeal and purpose. I will try again tomorrow with a renewed zeal and purpose. To conclude, one of Swami Vivekananda's exhortations I'd like to place before you. See, as I pointed out, we are in this age of information overload. Lots of ideas, lot of beliefs, lot of value systems are being put across, infused, injected into our systems. You know what Swami Vivekananda says about it? He says, take up one idea, make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, live on that idea. This is the way to success. This is the way great giants are produced. So we need to start somewhere we are. Wherever we are, we have to start. Though our initial attempts could be small, we need to persevere. Then we are bound to reap the benefits of that attempt. Sincerity is what is required from us. Sincerity and passion for that vision is important. Remembering, never underestimate the power of little things. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.